Welcome to part 1 of my build of the Tamiya F-35A. Even though the cockpit is very digital, I wanted to go ahead and get the Eduard Big Sin set up to add just a little bit more details. And instead of painting all of the different details like it recommends, I decided to go ahead and use the kit decals that are supplied to do that. And they worked out great. Now, details that the Eduard adds to the system, you get into a lot more of the plumbing and cables to the back. The kind of, rubber fabric covering is a little bit better quality to it. And then you have a few things like the hand strap holder. The hand holder is a little bit more refined. And then beyond that, the rudder pels are much better than the plastic injected type. Right here, all I'm doing is painting some of the details black, and is just Vallejo acrylic black. I'm also using the black to just cover up some of the flaws and cracks that I had with the decals. Now, when it comes down to the weapons bay and different bays, I'm using Citadel Nuln Oil, which it just works kind of like a magic wash, and it's acrylic wash, but it does really good about feathering. And so I'm just lathering this into all the crevices. This can be cleaned up if you're quick with this with Windex pretty easily. So if you have some areas where there's just a little bit too much, you can have that removed with, Windex. You can see a couple of the areas where there's just a little bit too much clinging to the surface. This does work better when it goes on a gloss surface, but it's not a big deal. Sometimes if you're just fast, you can just wipe it and make sure you have the desired effect, or come back with it with some Windex and just kind of wipe it away. And you can be able to take it off if you're fast with it. If it's on too long, then it's going to be much harder to get off. The Nuln Oil also works really good for cockpits. Basically anywhere that you have recesses, it creates some really good shadows and just overall good wash for those different methods. Wouldn't do it for like a panel line wash or some other stuff, but when it comes to this purpose, works really well. So this is going to be the nose wheel bay. Works really good on the F-35, how it's got all these different structures into the bottom, this cross hatching, a lot of different places for the wash to cling to, and it looks really cool. All the engineering to this kit is just fantastic. Everything that you would expect from Tamiya. I've also built the Kitty Hawk and the Mang kits. Just doesn't even compare. When it comes to Tamiya, I didn't have any struggles, anything fitting anything together. Everything made logical sense. It could only go together in one way. Super easy and drama-free putting everything together. And even integrating it with the Eduard kit. Everything just went all together smoothly. FYI, when you get to this part of the instructions, don't think that you're smarter than the instructions and clip that part for the front nose wheel. If you do that, it just kind of flops around and it doesn't, it could be potentially damaged, whereas it nicely tucks it away for when you actually are going to use it later on. And so it was actually brilliant engineering. I just made the mistake of thinking that I was smarter than Tamiya. I'm obviously not. And it's just amazing how just the upper and lower fuselage parts just practically snap together, just a little bit of glue here and there in strategic places, and you're done. You don't have to do much in the way of kind of fiddling with the parts to get them to fit properly. It just fits in its place as it should. Put some glue where it's needed. Not much in the way of filling that needs to happen. Now when we get into the vertical stabilizers and the rudders right here, you can see that there's a few different pieces where it doesn't match the other side, so I'm pretty sure those are going to be a seam that needs to be dealt with. Whether how noticeable it is in the end, most people probably won't care, but I'm definitely going to fill them in. So what I'm using is rubberized CA, and this is going to be from Bob Smith Industries. And there's a bunch of others. I kind of like this one. This one I've had for a little while, so it's a little bit goopy. We'll address that in a sec. but this becomes something that we can fill in and we can sand, and you're not going to have it be affected by painting in the later stages. So that means you're not going to have ghost seams. And as you can see on the flaps here, they're going to need the same exact treatment to eliminate those different nasty seam lines. That pretty dang sure that does not exist on the real aircraft. But if somebody knows more, correct me in the comments. Now, like I said earlier, this glue is a little bit older, so it's a bit gloopy, and so I'm going to use this CA debonder from Great Plains to be able to just kind of remove it and make it so it's not going to take me an hour to sand through the material. And unfortunately, I get into where I removed a bit too much, but I've got a trick here that I'll show you in a sec. There's a couple small little teeny seams, probably something nobody's ever gonna notice, but I know they're there. So need to be able to put in some of that black CA and just try to remove those and make sure that they're gone. Now that that has dried, I'm going to come in with my Infinity sanding stick at 400 grit and then 800 grit, and I'm just going to work away the black CA until all you see is just a black line in that seam to give evidence that it is basically disappearing. You can also check a little bit with your finger and just kind of see if it's nice and smooth as a little bit of a spot check. To further spot check, I'm just adding Mr. Surfacer 1500 thinned with Mr. Leveling thinner, and you can kind of see I didn't do the best job. There's going to be some more work ahead of us. Now at this point what I did is I grabbed that black CA and I thinned it with the debonder to make it quite a bit thinner mix to where I could just let it flow almost like a pin wash into those panel lines, and that made it a lot easier to get back into it and remove the excess. Now to mask up the cockpit for painting. Now the way that I did this is I was just adding a bunch of masking fluid from Mr. Masking Neo and just put that all into there, and then also adding tape to kind of cover up some of the big pieces. Just working a little bit with foam, but it probably isn't the best for that kind of opening, but there's a lot of different ways you could do it. Now after I did it, I realized in mine maybe it's different, but I got two canopies with Tamiya. I don't know if they're going to give you one for open and then you can change it to one to be closed, or I got lucky, but you can just use the second canopy as a mask and that works out well. And that's it for this episode. In the next chapter, we're going to be painting the landing gear, doing a few things with the gear bay doors, but we're mainly going to be getting into the painting stage, the fun stage, where we're going to go in and paint the Aggressor scheme. And I'm going to show you how I tackle this, some of the decals that I'm going to use, along with making some masks to have that kind of splinter camo. But thanks for watching to the end. Make sure that you like and subscribe so you can be updated when I am able to release part 2.